I never thought a single night could unravel my entire life. My name is Delaney Harper, and as I stood in front of my mirror, slipping into a navy dress for my high school reunion, I felt a flicker of excitement for the first time in ages. A chance to relive the laughter and carefree days of my past. But beneath the nostalgia, a storm was brewing, one I couldn't see coming. That night, surrounded by old friends and fueled by memories, I stumbled into a moment of weakness that shattered the trust I'd built with my husband, Ethan. Now, as I sit in the wreckage of my choices, haunted by guilt and secrets, I'm left with a chilling question. What happens when the truth I'm hiding comes crashing into the light? Picture this. A late autumn evening, the kind where the air bites just enough to remind you winter's creeping in, and I'm standing in front of my bedroom mirror, smoothing out the fabric of a navy dress that hugs my frame in all the right places. My name's Delaney Harper, and at 29, I've carved out a quiet little life in a suburban corner of Ohio. My husband, Ethan, 32 and always buried in spreadsheets as a financial analyst, is downstairs probably double-checking some report while I get ready. We've been married 5 years now, and while our days aren't filled with fireworks, there's a steady rhythm to them, or so I've convinced myself. I freelance as a graphic designer, working from home, which means I've got freedom, but also long stretches of silence that make me ache for a real conversation beyond client emails. Tonight, though, that silence is about to shatter. I'm heading to my 10-year high school reunion at Rusty's Tavern back in my hometown of Canton. It's been forever since I've seen the faces from Lincoln High, and there's this flutter in my chest just thinking about it. I can almost hear the echoes of locker slams and cafeteria chatter as I imagine walking into that bar. Who will I even recognize after all this time? I'm itching to swap stories, to laugh over the dumb things we did as teens, to see if the years have softened the edges of those old friendships. There are 4 guys in particular I'm curious about. First, there's Jake Miller, the quarterback with a grin that could charm anyone, and a joke always ready on his tongue. We were lab partners in chemistry, and I swear half the time we were more focused on cracking each other up than on the experiments. Then there's Ryan Patel, the quiet, brilliant kid who saved my grade in algebra with his patient tutoring sessions. I still remember the way he'd blush when I thanked him, like he wasn't used to the attention. Travis Bennett was the wild card, an artist with a rebellious streak who once sketched a caricature of me that had the whole class in stitches, exaggerated nose and all. And finally, Marcus Evans, the enigma. He was always on the fringes, brooding and silent, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. I never really talked to him, but I noticed him. How could you not? As I slip on a pair of simple flats and grab my purse, I catch my reflection one last time. Not bad, Delaney. I head downstairs, and Ethan looks up from his laptop just long enough to give me a small smile. Have a good time, babe, he says, leaning in for a quick kiss. His lips are warm but brief, and I'm already halfway out the door, keys in hand, before I reply with a quick, "Thanks, I will." The drive to Rusty's isn't long, but it's enough time for my mind to wander. What will Jake's laugh sound like now? Has Ryan come out of his shell? Is Travis still? As I step into Rusty's Tavern, the familiar smell of stale beer and fryer grease hits me like a wave of memories. The place hasn't changed a bit. Dim lights casting long shadows over worn wooden floors, the jukebox in the corner humming some old country tune. I scan the room and see about 20 faces from Lincoln High, some instantly recognizable, others taking a second to place. There's a warmth in the air, a buzz of nostalgia that wraps around me as I make my way to a large sticky table near the back. I slide into a seat, and almost immediately, I'm surrounded by the guys I've been thinking about all day. Jake, Ryan, Travis, and Marcus pull their chairs close, forming a little circle within the chaos of the reunion. It's like no time has passed at all. Jake's still got that infectious grin, and he wastes no time ordering a round of cheap beer for the table, the amber bottles clinking as they arrive alongside a basket of greasy fries and sticky wings. We dig in, the salt and heat of the food grounding me in the moment. Conversation kicks off effortlessly, and Jake launches into a story about that infamous chemistry class incident. How we accidentally set off the fire alarm with a botched experiment involving too much vinegar and baking soda. His animated retelling, complete with exaggerated hand gestures, has me laughing so hard my sides ache, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. The others join in, adding their own details, and for a moment, we're all back in that cramped lab, 16 and clueless. Ryan, sitting to my left, sips his beer quietly at first, but then he leans in, his voice softer than the rest. He's a software engineer now, all grown up with a steady gaze, but there's still a hint of that old shyness as he admits something unexpected. He had a crush on me back in high school, he says, his cheeks flushing as the words tumble out. The table erupts in teasing hoots and hollers, Jake slapping him on the back while I feel my own face heat up. I wave it off with a nervous chuckle, muttering something about how I had no idea, but inside I'm flattered, maybe even a little flustered by the confession. Travis, across from me, is a walking canvas of ink now, his arms covered in intricate tattoos that peek out from under his rolled-up sleeves. He's a freelance illustrator, and when he pulls out his phone to show us some of his recent sketches, I'm blown away by the detail. One drawing catches my eye, a playful, exaggerated portrait that instantly reminds me of the caricature he did of me all those years ago. I point it out, laughing at the memory of my comically oversized nose in that old sketch, and he grins, promising to draw me again before the night's over. There's a spark in his eyes, a mischievous edge that makes me wonder what he's got up his sleeve. Marcus, though, is quieter. He's to my right. As the night at Rusty's Tavern wound down, the energy between us five, Jake, Ryan, Travis, Marcus, and me, felt too electric to let go. Jake, with that ever-charming grin, suggested we keep the party going somewhere more private. Before I knew it, we were piling into his beat-up truck, heading to a rented house on the edge of Canton. It's a cozy, slightly run-down two-story place, the kind that's seen better days, with mismatched furniture scattered around and a faint whiff of pine cleaner lingering in the air. The creaky wooden floors groaned under our steps as we spilled into the living room, a case of beer in hand and a bottle of cheap whiskey Jake had rummaged from the kitchen cupboard clutched like a trophy. We settled into the sagging couches and mismatched chairs, the dim glow of a single lamp casting soft shadows across the room. The conversation picked up right where it left off at the tavern, but now it was louder, more unguarded, the kind of talk that only comes after a few drinks. Travis, his voice a little slurred, leaned forward, his eyes locking with mine as he admitted something that caught me off guard. He'd always thought I was out of his league back in high school, he said, a sheepish grin spreading across his face. Jake jumped in, teasing that I'd been the dream girl for half the football team, his laughter booming through the small space. I tried to brush it off with a giggle, but the heat of the whiskey was already buzzing in my head, making everything feel a little hazy, a little too warm. I took a bold swig straight from the bottle, the burn sliding down my throat as I felt their eyes on me. Marcus, who'd been mostly silent all night, suddenly spoke up, his voice low and raw. He started talking about a brutal breakup he'd gone through a few months back, the kind that leaves you hollowed out. I found myself leaning closer, my hand resting on his arm as I murmured words of comfort. My touch lingered there, longer than it should have, and I could feel the shift in the air, a tension that wasn't there before. Ryan kept stealing glances at me, his gaze intense in a way that made my pulse quicken, while Travis's smirk carried a suggestive edge I couldn't ignore. The room felt charged, like a storm was brewing just beneath the surface of our laughter and clinking bottles. Someone, Jake, I think, suggested a drinking game to break the tension. And of course, it had to be truth or dare, the kind of game that feels innocent until it isn't. We went around the circle, the truths getting more personal, the dares getting bolder with every round. Jake, with a mischievous glint in his eye, dared me to dance on the rickety coffee table in the center of the room. I hesitated for half a second before the whiskey in my veins pushed me to my feet. I climbed up, swaying to an imaginary beat as they cheered and hollered, their voices egging me on. I laughed, feeling wild and free in a way I hadn't in years, my heart pounding with the thrill of it all. Then Ryan, his voice quieter but no less daring, challenged Marcus to give me a quick peck on the cheek. I protested weakly, a half-hearted, "Oh, come on," slipping out, but I didn't move away. Marcus leaned in, his breath warm against my skin, and the brief touch sent a rush through me I couldn't explain, a spark that lit something dangerous inside. The game kept spiraling from there, the boundaries we'd all silently agreed to blurring with every dare, every shared look, every brush of skin. The alcohol and nostalgia wove together into a haze I couldn't escape, pulling me under like a riptide. And then, in the heat of that reckless night, everything fell apart. Or maybe it came together in a way I never expected. I lost control completely, swept up in a storm of longing and forbidden thrill. What happened next? I can barely bring myself to say, but it's the truth I have to face. That night, I crossed a line I never thought I would. Giving in, I wake up with a start, the world tilting as I blink against the harsh morning light filtering through the blinds. It's around 7 a.m., and I'm sprawled on a sagging couch in that rented house on the edge of Canton, my head pounding like a drumline at a halftime show. My clothes are rumpled, clinging to me in a way that feels wrong, and my mouth tastes like regret and stale whiskey. I sit up slowly, wincing as the ache in my temples sharpens, and try to piece together the jumbled mess of last night. Flashes of laughter, heated glances, and moments I wish I could erase flicker through my mind, each one a stab of guilt mixed with a fleeting, shameful thrill I can't quite bury. The house is eerily quiet now, a stark contrast to the chaos of hours ago. I glance around the living room, taking in the aftermath. Jake is sprawled on the floor, one arm flung over his face, snoring softly into the carpet. Ryan is curled up in an armchair, his glasses crooked on his nose, looking almost peaceful despite the empty beer cans scattered nearby. Travis is nowhere in sight. Maybe he stumbled off to another room or left altogether. Then I hear the faint clink of a mug from the kitchen, and my stomach tightens. Marcus is in there, moving around with a quiet purpose I can't read from here. I drag myself to my feet, every muscle protesting, and shuffle toward the sound, not sure if I'm ready to face anyone after everything. He's standing by the counter, pouring coffee into a chipped mug, his back to me at first. When he turns, his expression is a blank slate, those piercing eyes giving nothing away. He holds out the mug without a word, and I take it, my fingers brushing his for a split second before I pull back like I've been burned. "Thanks," I mutter, barely audible, my gaze dropping to the floor. I can't look at him, can't bear to see if there's judgment or something worse in his stare. The air between us is thick, heavy with things we're both refusing to acknowledge. It's like there's an unspoken pact hanging over the whole house. None of us are going to talk about what went down last night. We'll pretend it didn't happen, sweep it under the rug like dust in a forgotten corner. But the tension is suffocating, a silent scream in the stillness. I clutch the mug, the heat seeping into my palms, and take a sip just to have something to do. The bitter taste does little to clear my head. I need to get out of here, away from the weight of their presence, away from the memories that cling to every corner of this room. I set the coffee down, barely touched, and grab my purse from where it's slumped by the couch. My movements are quick, almost frantic, as I sling it over my shoulder and head for the door without another word. I don't say goodbye, don't check if anyone's awake to notice me leaving. I just need to escape. Stepping outside, the chilly morning air hits me like a slap, sharp and unforgiving. It cuts through the fog in my mind, dragging me back to a reality I don't want to face. I wrap my arms around myself, shivering as I make my way to my car parked haphazardly on the gravel drive. The weight of what I've done settles over me like a lead blanket. I've betrayed Ethan, my husband, the man who trusts me with everything, who's probably at home right now, waiting for me to walk through the door with stories of a harmless reunion. He has no idea about the line I crossed, about the choices I made in the heat of a reckless moment. My chest tightens at the thought of him, at the life we've built, now teetering on the edge of ruin because of me. I slide into the driver's seat, the cold leather creaking under me, and catch my reflection in the rearview mirror. I barely recognize the woman staring back. Eyes hollow, skin pale, lips pressed into a thin line of shame. Who am I right now? Not the Delaney Harper who... The drive back home feels like an eternity, each mile stretching out longer than the last, the hum of the engine a constant reminder of the mess I've made. My hands grip the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white, and my heart's pounding in my chest like it's trying to break free. I can still taste the stale whiskey on my tongue, still feel the weight of last night pressing down on me, a shadow I can't shake. I've betrayed Ethan in a way I never thought possible, and now I have to face him, look into his trusting eyes, and pretend everything's fine. How am I supposed to do that? How do I walk into our home and act like I didn't just shatter the foundation of our marriage for a fleeting, reckless moment of weakness? It's just past noon when I finally pull into the driveway of our modest 2-story house. The familiar sight of the faded blue siding and the little flower bed I planted last spring hitting me like a punch to the gut. Ethan's car is parked there, a silent sentinel waiting for my return. My stomach churns as I cut the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the chaos in my head. I sit there for a moment, staring at the front door, trying to muster the courage to go inside. I force a smile onto my face, practicing it in the rearview mirror, but it looks hollow, fake, like a mask that doesn't quite fit. I take a deep breath, grab my purse, and step out, the gravel crunching under my feet as I make my way to the house, each step heavier than the last. I push open the door, the familiar creak of the hinges sounding louder than ever, and the smell of grilled cheese sandwiches wafts toward me, warm and comforting in a way that makes my chest ache even more. I walk into the kitchen, and there he is, Ethan, standing at the stove, flipping a sandwich in the pan with that easy, casual confidence he always has. He looks up, his face breaking into a wide grin, and says, "Hey babe, how was the reunion? You look happy." His words slice through me like a knife, sharp and unrelenting, because I know the smile I'm wearing is a lie, a brittle facade hiding the storm raging inside me. I mumble something vague, my voice barely steady, about how it was fun and I caught up with old friends, but the words feel like ash in my mouth. I can't even meet his eyes for more than a second before I have to look away, pretending to adjust my purse on the counter. The kitchen feels suffocating, every detail closing in around me like a trap. The sizzle of the melting cheese in the pan, the faint buttery aroma that should feel like home, but instead makes me nauseous, the way Ethan hums a little tune under his breath. A song we danced to at our wedding, no less. It's all too much. He turns to grab a plate, asking casually if I've got any funny stories to share from the night, his tone so light, so unsuspecting, that it twists the knife deeper. I want to scream, to let it all spill out, to tell him about the choices I made in that hazy, reckless blur, about the boundaries I crossed in a way that can't be undone. But the words stick in my throat, lodged there like a stone I can't swallow. Instead, I force out a weak laugh, saying something about Jake's old pranks, but my voice cracks, and I'm sure he can hear it. I slide into a chair at the small kitchen table, the wood cool under my trembling hands, and Ethan sets a plate in front of me, the golden crust of the sandwich staring up like an accusation. I pick at it, tearing off tiny pieces but not eating, my appetite buried under layers of guilt. Inside, I'm spiraling, drowning in a flood of questions I can't answer. How could I have thrown away everything we've built for one night of selfish indulgence? How could I have let myself get swept up in something so wrong, so far from who I thought I was? If Ethan ever finds out, will he look at me with the same warmth, the same... It's later now, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a golden haze over our quiet backyard. I'm sitting on the back porch, the old wooden chair creaking under me as I stare out at the small garden Ethan and I planted together last spring. The little patch of earth, with its neat rows of marigolds and struggling tomato plants, feels like a relic of a simpler time, a time when my hands weren't stained with the weight of what I've done. The smile I forced on my face when I walked through the door earlier is long gone, replaced by a hollow ache that sits heavy in my chest. I'm holding a glass of water, the coolness of it grounding me as I take small sips, trying to steady the tremble in my hands. But nothing can steady the storm inside me, the whirlwind of guilt and fear that's been churning since I left that house on the edge of Canton. I keep replaying the night in my mind, those reckless hours that spiraled out of control. I know I've made a terrible mistake, one that could shatter everything if it ever comes to light. It's not just a fleeting lapse in judgment, it's a betrayal, a deep cut into the trust Ethan and I have built over 5 years of marriage. If he knew the truth about what happened in those hazy, charged moments with Jake, Ryan, Travis, and Marcus, I don't know if he could ever look at me the same way. I wonder about them now, those old friends who became something more in the heat of the night. Do they feel this same gnawing regret, this sickening weight in their stomachs? Or have they already pushed it aside, chalking it up to a wild memory they'll never speak of again? I haven't heard a word from any of them since I slipped out of that house this morning, and a part of me hopes I never do. I don't think I could handle facing them, not with the memory of our shared lapse burning so fresh in my mind. I think about confessing to Ethan, letting the truth pour out like poison from a wound. I can almost see it, sitting him down, watching the confusion in his hazel eyes turn to hurt, then to something colder as the reality sinks in. I imagine the way his voice would crack, the way he might pull away from me, the life we've so carefully woven together unraveling thread by thread. The thought alone makes my breath catch, a sharp pain slicing through me. I'm too afraid to face that, too terrified of losing him, of losing us. So, for now, I decide to bury it, to lock this secret deep inside where even I can't look at it too closely. I tell myself I'll rebuild the trust I've broken, starting with myself. I'll be the wife he deserves again, somehow, some way. I'll carry on as if nothing happened, even if every smile I give him feels like a lie, even if every touch is tainted by the shadow of my choices. The garden blurs in front of me as my eyes sting, but I blink hard, refusing to let the tears fall. I take another sip of water, the glass nearly empty now, and try to focus on the mundane. The chirp of a distant bird, the faint rustle of leaves in the autumn breeze. But my mind won't rest. It keeps circling back to the what-ifs. What if someone talks? What if one of the guys lets something slip, even by accident? What if Ethan senses the distance in me, the way I flinch when he gets too close, and starts asking questions I can't answer? The uncertainty of it all is a weight I can't shake, a dark cloud hanging over every moment I spend pretending to be okay. I hear the back door creak open behind me, and my heart skips a beat. Ethan steps out, his footsteps soft on the porch as he comes to stand beside me. He doesn't say anything at first, just settles into the chair next to mine, his presence warm and familiar in a way that both soothes and torments me. He wraps an arm around my shoulders, pulling me gently against him, and I lean into the embrace despite myself. His, "Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you."